Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Millennials. Today I have Tory Pachis, the CMO and EVP of Amica Insurance. Excited to chat today. Tory has been in the insurance game for a while, and I'm excited to pick his brain. And they've been doing some cool sports marketing thing. And I'm on a sports marketing kick right now with some of my guests. So I'm excited to talk about sports marketing. But I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself. Like, how did you get into marketing, the insurance industry, and then we'll get into the combo today.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. It's great to be here. And, as a Gen Xer, I'm excited to be invited to a millennial podcast. Thanks for having me. My name is Tory Pachis, as you said. I'm the Chief Marketing and Growth Officer here at Amica Insurance. I'm approaching my 6-year anniversary here at the company. But a total of 27 years in the insurance industry, having worked at fine companies like Travelers Insurance and Hanover Insurance as well. Started my career in the late 90s, graduating from University of Connecticut, go Huskies. And I wanted to be a journalist.
I feel bad for you, though, because you lost the national championship. But
at least we got there, and we've got five more that we can relish. But I wanted to be a journalist when I went to college, and got my degree in journalism. And my first job offer was to write obituaries for a local newspaper. And that's when I decided, maybe it's time to go back to grad school and study business. So went back to grad school at UConn and studied marketing communications, and was fortunate enough to be accepted into a leadership development program at Travelers, where really a 27-year career all started. Insurance is an incredible industry that's really helped me in a lot of ways, and my family in a lot of ways, but I think it helps society in a lot of ways, in terms of, shifting the balance of risk and letting people and companies and businesses flourish. So excited to be here and talk a little bit about our story.
Yeah, I want to go into the first thing. I know you said you came 6 years ago, so like 2020 to Amica, and I know that you essentially had very low brand awareness when you came in there at the company. So what was some things? Could you walk me through, like, what are some things you thought about to put Amica on the map and start building the brand presence?
Yeah, and maybe before I jump into that, I should probably start with what makes Amica unique in this really competitive insurance category, because this is truly a unique brand. It's a 119-year-old mutual insurance company, started as the first auto mutual company in the country. And what's really interesting is throughout our heritage, the first 90 years of our existence, we were a referral-only company. So the only way that you could get a policy was being referred to by a friend or family member who was a policyholder in good standing. And for that reason, there's this tremendous loyalty and brand advocacy that exists to this day with the brand. We often hear from multi-generational families and customers that talk about, with great pride, passing on the Amica policy to their kids and their grandchildren. In fact, I got a letter earlier this year from a 6th-generation Amica customer with a photo enclosed of their great-great-grandfather in Rhode Island in their first automobile in 1912. So there's a very rich history here. What's also very unique about our company is we take great pride in the customer service that we offer. So we are the most awarded J.D. Power company for customer service and satisfaction on the auto and home business that we write. And we're a direct writer. We're a national direct writer, which means that from a marketing standpoint, everything we do is really to build the brand and drive leads and sales through our own call centers and website. That's our primary form of distribution. I think the other aspect that makes our company really unique is the loyalty and customer tenure of our in-force book of business. So our average customer tenure is 18 years, which is unheard of in this insurance category, where the typical customer shops every 3 to 5 years. So to your question around, brand awareness, when I arrived in July 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, one of the first questions to my team was, what does our brand tracker show in terms of awareness and consideration? And that's where I quickly learned, we didn't have a brand tracker in place, but B, most of our media was in lower funnel performance marketing channels, primarily in direct mail. We were virtually a direct mail only company. And when I told many of my friends in the industry that I was joining Amica, they called me the mailman for the first 6 months that I came here, because of the amount of mail and how dependent we were on that channel. And I will say direct mail is still an important channel for us and for the category, but it was really important that we balanced out, the performance marketing channels with brand building. So we quickly stood up a brand tracker, and that's where we learned that our unaided awareness was about 2% countrywide. And that's challenging for a 120-year-old company to learn that, less than 2% of America is aware of you. Shows great opportunity ahead, but also makes you wonder, like, what is it that we need to do now? So, and why it's really important in our category too is there's a direct relationship between awareness and how often a brand is quoted. And that's why we continue to see, the top 5 companies in our category invest more and more in advertising, because there is that direct correlation between brand and quote rate. So we increased our marketing budget. We found balance between brand and demand channels. We introduced 30 new media channels to our portfolio. And it's been a journey over the last 5 years of really building brand and consideration, but also, policy growth at the lower end of the funnel.
I think it's super cool that, like the first 90 years, first you stayed in business 90 years just from referrals, which is probably unheard of to do, just like zero, pretty much zero marketing. The only marketing is word of mouth, people, your customers doing that, which is pretty hard to do. And then you decided to do some channels like direct mail, and now you're doing other channels. I think that shows that it's a heritage brand where if customers are referring, because that's probably one of your best channels still, is those customers telling other people about the policy. But I also want to go into one of the biggest things you did recently, and the biggest channels you've invested in is building this sports marketing ecosystem. So how did you connect cultural impact with measurable ROI, not just awareness, with your partnerships with the Celtics?
Yeah, in 2022, we started one of our first sports marketing investments, and locally here in Rhode Island, it was for the naming rights of the Amica Mutual Pavilion, formerly known as the Dunkin' Donuts Center. It's Rhode Island's largest sort of coliseum, where it sits 16,000. It's where the Providence College Friars play. And it's a hub for, annually over 1 million, affluent families in the area to come together. And first move was to put our name on the building, which was tremendous in terms of building brand awareness, but also a commitment to the city where we were founded in 119 years ago. It was also a sign to the local communities, the nonprofits that we support, and our employees that we're here to stay and we're committed to this market. From there came an incredible opportunity after the 2024-25 season to put our name on the jersey patch of the Boston Celtics. And you're absolutely right. At first it started as a brand awareness play. And, I think one of our challenges as marketers always and will continue to be, how do you translate marketing metrics, vanity metrics, some might call it, like awareness, consideration, impressions, media value, to actual business value that a CEO, a CFO, a board of directors can understand. What does this mean in terms of revenue, in terms of market share growth? So admittedly, we're still on that journey. Year one of the Jersey Patch was very much building awareness, letting more people know who Amica is. And we've seen our awareness and consideration numbers hit all-time high in the New England markets. Year two, now that we just wrapped up, the second season of the Jersey Patch, has been to demonstrate how is this translating to, like I said, revenue growth. And that's where we're looking at things like how many unique visitors from, the Celtics are we bringing to Amica.com or Celtics-related landing pages? How deep are they going into the funnel? How many season ticket holders are we able to issue a policy for, right, to show lower funnel growth? And ultimately, what does our market share growth and revenue look like in the states of Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New England, where we continue to invest? And that's where we've seen some significant growth as a result of this investment with the Celtics.
Like one way I see people measuring this stuff is like if you did the Rhode Island naming rights of their stadium, did you see like quotes going up in Rhode Island as a direct correlation of like naming that stadium? Is that like one of the things you were looking at, that in Rhode Island quotes went up when we named the stadium after Amica?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, attribution can be really tough with a lot of these programs. And, the naming rights and the Jersey Patch are one of many investments that Amica is making as a whole, in terms of pricing improvements, digital improvements. There's a lot of enhancements that are working all together. But what I can tell you is, when you start to see a pre-post impact on upper funnel metrics like awareness, consideration, when you start to see a measurable difference in brand attributes, like how your brand is perceived, and then you start to see it translate into incremental policy growth and revenue growth, you can certainly point to these brand investments as having a big impact in, lower funnel sales and revenue.
Yeah, I mean, just like thinking of me as a consumer, the two ways I ever think about insurance is one, like I ask my friends and family, what insurance do you have for X, Y, and Z? Or two, I've seen an some advertisement somewhere that is about that insurance. Those are like the two ways. I'm not really going to go search the internet to find the best policy because there's so much. As someone especially someone when I was looking at insurance back in the day, had so low, I didn't even know what insurance was, like what I can get with insurance. I didn't know, my education level was so low. So my only thing is like, I heard this ad once, or my father-in-law, or my mother, or someone else is using a policy. Maybe I should check it out. So I totally understand like the brand awareness play in the insurance industry.
Yeah, I mean it's a low engagement category. It's purchased at a fairly low frequency. It's not something you buy every month. So for that reason, I think that's one of the reasons why you see brands invest so much in awareness, because you need to be mentally available for the consumer when they are in that shopping and buying mode. One other sort of leading indicator for all this, you mentioned Google searching and for a product, and in our category, generic keywords, auto, home, life insurance, are very expensive because there's so many companies that are competing and bidding against each other for those generic keywords. But if you get a consumer to search on your brand keyword, it's a fraction of the cost of a generic keyword. In fact, of all of our channels, it's the most efficient. So for that reason, there's a lot of benefit to having the consumer know that Amica is an insurance provider, that they sell auto, home, and life insurance, and search directly for Amica, either from our website or a search engine.
One question I have too is, I mean, I know you're balancing that 100+ year heritage, and now there's like a pretty new generation of consumers out there. So how like the partnership with a sports obsessed city like Boston shape how you both, for both long time and next gen audiences? Like how does it, you balance both those audience with that partnership?
I think, one of the reasons why we partnered with the Celtics was much more than just building awareness and consideration. One of our other business objectives was to connect with a younger consumer and a younger audience, specifically in the New England market. Our average customer tenure years ago was about 65 years old, which is great. It's probably one of the reasons why we relied so heavily on direct mail as an acquisition channel. But one of our objectives is, how do you connect with a younger consumer, which allows you to build, lifetime value over a longer span. So for that reason, you think of the NBA, you think of sports. Half of the NBA audience is under the age of 35. It's one of the fastest growing sports, and allows you to do more sort of creative, emotive storytelling, and connect with the players and tell their stories as well. I think young people are interested in brands, for what's the greater purpose behind it? What does this brand stand for? When I purchase from this company, what does it mean for me? And one of our driving forces behind the Celtics partnership was what we can do in the community as well, more purpose-driven marketing and storytelling. We had a saying as a team when we launched this, that we want this patch to be more than just sports page news. We want it to be front page news. So I'll give you one example of that. We quickly partnered with the Boston Celtics Shamrock Foundation, which is their nonprofit. And we connected the Amica Companies Foundation, which is our nonprofit. And they educated us on one of the biggest needs in the New England community, in the greater Boston, Providence area, which is early childhood education. That there's a lack of seats for young people. It's expensive. And, there aren't enough teachers or facilities for these young people, and how the ages of essentially 0 to 5 are some of the most important years of a human's development, and can be very predictive of future success. So we are partnering and contributing $2.5 million from the Amica Companies Foundation. They're matching that at $2.5 million for a total of $5 million, to build childhood early education centers in the greater Boston and Providence area. We just broke ground on one in the Manton Heights area of Providence. We're starting to do grants for teachers as well. And, again, this is how we extend beyond the patch into more community and purpose-driven marketing. We also use, because we don't have agents as distribution, we use any hospitality opportunity to involve our nonprofits. So Make-A-Wish, has been involved, in other nonprofits in the area, where they get to meet players or sit courtside for a game or do the game ball delivery. And that's gone a long way to really telling the Amica story and what we stand for, while borrowing the equity from, the Boston Celtics.
I love the purpose-driven marketing. And you also said earlier that part of this partnership was not only to go deeper with the athletes involved in the Boston, like the Celtics. So I know you did that campaign Back to Zero with Jason Tatum. So what was the core idea of that campaign? How did you make it feel authentic to the Celtic culture rather than just like sponsoring another athlete?
I think one of the mistakes that brands make is, just the standard logo slap on, on a jersey or in the stadium or on an advertisement, and assuming that's going to get you, the results that you're looking for. And it was very important for us day one that we really connect our brand values and our approach to emotive storytelling in our creative, which, by the way, is very different from what you see in the insurance category, which is anchored to humor as a vehicle. We made a conscious decision that we're gonna go the opposite way, and really focus on humanity, empathy, and the customer centricity that we're known for as a company. We signed on with Jason Tatum as separately in a separate deal to the Boston Celtics jersey patch. And one of the reasons for that is we thought we could do a little bit more storytelling with a player's following and authority and endorsement behind it. The NBA also has rules around how you can talk about your sponsorship with the Celtics. We're confined to a 150-mile radius around TD Garden where they play their games. That's why most of our Celtics-related advertising airs on NBC Sports Boston, which is in that regional area. However, if you sign with a player, you can advertise nationally or internationally because it's a separate agreement with that player. And that's one of the reasons why we also partnered with Jason. We did a lot of research on Jason. We got to know him, his values, his approach to the game, how he thinks about legacy and responsibility, and we saw alignment with Amica's values as well. Back to Zero is a campaign, and I don't know if you know this, Daniel, but today, I don't know when this will air, but today is May 12th. And the reason why that's significant is 1 year ago to this day, Jason tore his Achilles in game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals in Madison Square Garden to the day. And I remember that night watching the game with the team in New York City, and the next day thinking to ourselves, oh my God, our brand partner is out, for the foreseeable future. What do we do? And that's when we quickly huddled with our advertising agency and realized, hang on a minute, this is an opportunity to tell a story or be part of a comeback. And that's what insurance is, right? Insurance steps in and helps people when they've suffered a setback. And we worked with Jason and his agency and his team on being part of that story. So Back to Zero is significant because he wears the number 0, and it's also symbolic of starting from scratch after you've had a loss. And we recorded that campaign, over the span of 300 days in his comeback journey, his remarkable comeback journey, in less than 9 months. And, another aspect to the storytelling was it's not just the athlete that's part of a comeback, it's the team behind him or her that's part of that comeback as well. So we did a lot of content with his mother, who's a big part of his life, with his trainer who helped him get back on the court, even with his barber that he's had since childhood, because they were all part of the network and small team behind his comeback. And we saw so much alignment between Jason's story and what Amica does when our policyholders also have a setback. We're part of their team when their house burns down or when they have a car accident, and we help them get back to zero as well. The campaign, as I'm sure many saw, especially in the Boston area, we had out-of-home advertisements that really launched the week where he announced he was coming back. When he did confirm he was going to play on that game on Friday in early March, all of the out-of-home transitioned to a countdown clock to when he would take the court. We partnered with the Celtics to put T-shirts on every seat in the stadium, Back to Zero. We created a television advertising campaign. Every employee at Amica received a T-shirt, and they were encouraged through social to show their own zeros in different ways. And so it was really like one of our first brand activations, and an incredible way to align employees, communities, and the Celtics as well.
Yeah, I think that, I love how the two things that I love about, one thing about like partnerships is like the alignment of values, which I think that's like one of the most important things is like, does that athlete, does that team align with the values of my organization. And then two, I think where people don't go as deep is that storytelling aspect of you have to align your story with their story and tell it in a way that's vulnerable, authentic, and then bringing in all the, like you said, bringing in all that their community. I think those two things are very important. But I also know I know you've said this in the past, but like a lot of things, especially in like the insurance industry, are measured on goosebumps before they're measured on data. So how do you, for the marketers out there who are like, oh no, like how do you go to your like CFO or to like a leader and say like, hey, we need to measure this on like goosebumps first before we measured like the data of it.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably heard me say that. We measure our creative on goosebumps, or maybe even sometimes a tear of joy or happiness. But I just firmly believe that advertising, especially in the insurance category, doesn't need to be humorous all the time. There's a place for humor, and I think along the way, many brands have found service and white glove claim service we provide comes with a more premium price, and it's core to you. So yeah, I mean, a lot of our advertising starts with the premise of, does it make you feel something? And I think in a way today, benchmarked against the industry, starting with some of those awareness numbers 5 years ago, here's the linkage between brand investments and sales and revenue growth. And here's how we estimate, a return on investment. You got to think like a CFO too, right? So yeah, we take great pride in our advertising. We've got a fantastic ad agency called Mother out in Brooklyn, and we chose them for that reason because we believe their creative storytelling is really unique and emotive in nature, and it's done well for us. Our brand platform, empathy is our best policy, has not only done a good job of carving out some unique space in the category externally, but it's been sort of a rallying cry for our employees as well.
What I know we haven't, I mean, we touched on at the beginning that you said, I mean, when you first arrived, it was around.
Yeah. I will tell you the number I first shared, 2%, was unaided awareness. Our total awareness now is over 70% in our target markets. Consideration is a high, over 40% as well. I mean, you're talking about a brand that only policyholders knew of, to now, more consumers are aware of Amica and considering us. And, I think we're just getting started in our journey. There's so many investments we're making in artificial intelligence. I'm kind of surprised those two letters, AI, haven't come up yet. In digital, we're making, investments, and we're going to continue in brand. And that's where I think, we're going to start to see the impact of these investments over the next few years.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you the question earlier, because we talked about a little bit of how, okay, some people hear about like top of mind awareness, but I do think now that AI has came into the picture, people are probably using it as a better, more of a like research partner to find insurance. So how are you like, what are some like things you're doing to make sure you show up in like the chat bots, the LLMs that Amica is like, one of those brands mentioned when they say like, I'm looking for car insurance in Rhode Island, or I'm auto insurance in Rhode Island. How do you show up with that?
Yeah, we're starting to see the impact of LLMs on our site visits, and that's another area that we're investing quite a bit in. It's starting with a complete website redesign to make sure the sort of architecture is in the right place, that we have the right tools to measure, LLM traffic from human traffic, that we have a content strategy that makes sense and is aligned what the LLMs are searching on. So there's a lot of efforts underway right now to help us. We haven't seen a huge decline in web traffic, at least not as much as what I hear from maybe some other companies. I think one other unique thing about Amica, because we have so much customer loyalty and advocacy, it's not uncommon to go to Reddit or Trustpilot and see organic consumer stories and reviews in a very positive nature about our company. And as you know, the LLMs really favor that user-generated, authentic content. And it's allowed us to sort of punch above our weight, given how dependent LLM search is on Reddit, Trustpilot, and even YouTube. So, we're going to continue leveraging that user-generated content and our customer advocacy as a factor in helping us prepare for the future as well.
Well, I'll just tell you one thing. I mean, during this call, I searched like best car insurance in Rhode Island and Boston, and number one was Amica recommended. So that's a good sign that those two partnerships are working very well. So the number one on chat, which is pretty cool. And then they said exactly what you said, like Amica is the best for customer service, best for home and auto bundling. And in Boston, it's number one, which is cool to see as well. Just letting you know.
I'm happy to see that. And I think that comes from, the record number of awards we've won for customer service and satisfaction, as well as the user-generated content as well.
I mean, it seems like also like, have you done anything with like NerdWallet or anything like that? Because that's where it's like pulling things from. Like NerdWallet is like one of the things that is what they're referencing to make sure that we're number one there.
We have a lot of initiatives underway with different partners, Trustpilot, NerdWallet, Reddit, to really develop a strategy around that.
I want to also go into one question. I know you talked about it a little bit, and we've talked about it a couple of times about values, but when you're like evaluating your sports partnerships, like what is the number one thing you're looking for? Is it the cultural fit? Is it's a content potential, or is it performance? And how do you balance those priorities?
Well, that's a good question. I don't want to give you a cop-out. I'd say all the above. All of them are really important. But I do think you need to start with the brand values, right? If it's not, if you jump to performance and you have two organizations that aren't connected from a value standpoint, then it's not authentic, right? So you have to start with, in my opinion, you have to start with an alignment of values. Essentially, you're borrowing equity from a partner, right? Us being on the patch of the Boston Celtics next to the Nike logo of the 18 time world champion Celtics, you're borrowing equity from that organization, and you have two organizations that call New England home, that have a tremendous rich heritage, that have loyal fans, and that are really proud of their commitment to employees and communities. And I think you have to start there. This partnership wouldn't have worked, if we, I don't know, making it up, partnered with the Memphis Grizzlies or something, if those alignment, that brand alignment wasn't there. But you start with that, the values, and then that gives you permission, to work lower funnel, do the storytelling, the authentic storytelling, and even get into the lower funnel performance marketing side of it.
I also want to go to one thing that I have a question. It's very serious, because I know you also, when you're not a CMO, if I'm not wrong, you also like coach youth basketball. Is that something you do? I want to know how do you think about coaching a team, like a youth basketball team, with how you think about building a marketing team? Like, what are the similarities of both those?
Oh, there's so many similarities there. So I've been blessed to coach I have 4 children, so I've coached them from, small, 5-year-olds to AAU basketball most recently. And, I think at the end of the day, CMOs are coaches, right? And you're finding the right players to put in on the court, or on your team, your marketing team. And they each serve, a purpose or have a skill, but it's how that team comes together to perform that really helps you, meet your OKRs or your targets. I think a lot of I kind of see our team and our brand as an underdog in a very competitive category that spent almost $14 billion in advertising last year. And we operate with a bit of a chip on our shoulder, but we've got a strong team of really smart players that get along and understand their role. As a coach, you got to put the right players on the court and set the right targets and vision and let the team go execute. We run our team through, the objectives and key results framework. We have 6 OKRs that are intended to have some healthy tension between them, but that's our scoreboard. And that's what we come back to every month to see whether we're making progress on that score. So yeah, ton of similarities between the two.
I honestly believe like one of the most powerful forces in sports and in marketing is being underestimated. I feel like that you said the chip on your shoulder, but I think it's such an underrated force in like knowing like you're the underdog, you're underestimated. And I know you did that with your comeback story, but it's just like with Jason Tatum, but that fire that it builds with that being underestimated. Because when you're like number one, it's hard to like have so much of a chip. I mean, you have like cockiness, but not the chip on your shoulder. Like, I need to like fight all the time to get like be known, be seen. So over the next few years, what does it look like the term modern relevance look like for Amica over the next few years? Like, I know you've earned it in like markets like Boston now, Rhode Island, but what does like the next few years look like when it comes to your path?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, continuing to execute on the strategy that we've built. But, I think for us, it's very important that we stay true to the legacy of this company, and the rich history and the loyal customer base that got us to this point, but also build an Amica for the next 119 years. And, we have to find ways to continue to bridge the gap, to tell our story to younger, more diverse audiences, while still staying true to our core. One of my favorite CMOs that I follow quite a bit outside of our industry is Chris Davis at New Balance. And there's so many similarities between New Balance and Amica. New England, private companies, I think they're 120 years old, so we're almost founded a year apart. But he talks about New Balance is it's not a heritage brand, it's a brand with heritage. And I love that saying because I think of the same way as Amica, where don't want us to be thought of as an old stodgy heritage brand, but take great pride in the heritage that we have and continue to tell that story for the future. I also think just the way technology, automation, AI, digital is evolving, we need to continue to, invest in those areas and think about telling our stories in more modern channels and in different ways to not only humans, but the robots that are that are going to be powering the future of marketing as well. And maybe the last point is, while we are, New England focused today, we are a national direct writer, and it's important for us to, in the future, find other markets, to diversify our portfolio and tell our story in a much broader way. So we've got a good strategy, but I'm really excited for what the future holds.
Yeah, I think one of the most swaggy credibility thing you can own is like saying that you've been around since like 1907. I think that's like nobody, if you haven't been around like that long, you can't say that. That's like a big differentiator. You can't say that as long as like you can try make something up, but that's like one thing where you can't go buy that as social proof. Like that's like social proof that already exists. So I think it's like a cool thing to like use it. I like the way you framed heritage, but like when I see brands that say like been around since like 1907, I'm like, that means like they're like, if they've been around that long, that means they have to be good because
you're doing something right.
You're doing something right if you're around. Lastly, I want to ask you and ask everybody in this podcast, what's a marketing hill you would die on?
Ooh, a marketing hill I would die on. Oh, there's a lot of them, but I'll give you off the top of my head. Can I give you two that are somewhat related to creative? I'm going to go the creative route, and I've mentioned this a couple times in our conversation, but I think that there's more to insurance advertising than humor, and that there's a place for a deeper emotive storytelling approach to creative in the insurance category. And alongside with that, this is a mantra that I use with my team all the time in our creative messaging, that the consumer is always the hero. The consumer is the protagonist, and our brand is not the hero. It's there to help them, guide them in overcoming a problem or achieving their objectives. And that's something I stole from one of my favorite books is Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand. And there's so many concepts in that hero journey that I think are relevant to how we approach brand storytelling, is that the consumer is always the hero of our stories.
I like that you bring in some of the I know you brought in like Thinking Fast and Slow, like Daniel Kahneman's like theory with like the System 1 and System 2, and then you brought in Donald Miller. I think so many like the brain, like storytelling and behavioral psychology are things that aren't ever going to change as like foundations of marketing. Like as long as like we've been telling stories for thousands of years, and our brains like really, I mean, maybe they've developed in other ways, but like the emotional side of our brain has not changed for 2,000 years. So it's like those two things are fundamentals to know.
Until the robots or AI completely take over, there's a place for storytelling.
Lastly, where could people follow your journey and what you're doing? Yeah. I
mean, I love connecting with people. Easiest place is on LinkedIn. Just look me up, Tory Pachis at Amica Insurance, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or pay it forward in any way that I can.
Well, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate the conversation.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. This was fun.